Thank you, everyone. Sorry for the delayed start. Um, Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished panelists and honoured guests, good evening and thank you for joining us for this critical discussion on the plight of Shahriar Kabir, a beloved children's author, filmmaker, journalist, and a tireless human rights defender from Bangladesh. This event is organised by the European Bangladesh Forum, a network of human rights activists working within the European Bengali diaspora, with assistance from Bridge Bangla 24, who will be broadcasting this live on YouTube and Facebook. It comes at a time when justice and freedom face immense challenges in Bangladesh and around the world. Shahriar Kabir is not just a writer or an activist, he is a voice for the voiceless. Over the decades, his courageous storytelling has shed light on the struggles of minorities, the victims of injustice, and those silenced by oppression, from documenting war crimes of 1971 to defending the rights of those persecuted today. Kabir has lived a life dedicated to truth and justice, often at great personal risk to him and his family. Sadly, this devotion to truth has come at a steep price. Kabir has faced arbitrary detention, harassment, and now imprisonment for standing firm in the fight for democracy and human rights in Bangladesh. His current predicament is not just an attack on an individual, it's a direct challenge to the principles of free expression, human dignity, and justice that we all hold dear. His case reflects a broader climate of fear and creeping anxiety in Bangladesh, where dissent is being suppressed and independent voices are silenced. Tonight, we are joined by a distinguished panel to explore this urgent issue. Allow me to introduce our esteemed speakers: Abbas Fayez, a senior human rights expert at the University of Essex and former South Asia researcher for Amnesty International, whose insights into human rights challenges in Bangladesh are unparalleled. We've also hopefully got Barrister Tanya Amir, an eminent lawyer and advocate for justice, who has tirelessly defended human rights cases in Bangladesh. We've also got Paolo Kasaka, the founder of the South Asia Democratic Forum and a former member of the European Parliament, who has long championed democracy and human rights in South Asia. Together, these experts will help us unpack the complex dynamics at play, the implications of Shahriar Kabir's imprisonment, and the steps we can take as a global community to demand his release and restore justice in Bangladesh. As the Communications Director of the European Bangladesh Forum, I firmly believe that forums like this serve as a critical reminder that the fight for human rights knows no borders. By coming together across continents, professions, and backgrounds, we amplify the voices of those like Shahriar Kabir who cannot speak for themselves today. As we begin this discussion, let us remember the stakes: freedom, justice, and the enduring power of the written word. These principles are not just an abstract, they are what sustain humanity and democracy. I urge everyone here to use this platform not only to raise awareness, but to take action, to share Shahriar Kabir's story, engage with policymakers, and demand accountability. His freedom and the freedom of countless others depends on our collective courage and determination. Thank you for your attention. And with that, let's begin. So first of all, I'd like to invite Fayez Abbas to give the keynote speaker for tonight. He has some real expertise in what is happening in Bangladesh. So Abbas, the floor is yours.
Sound.
Oh, Abbas, I think you're muted.
Okay, sorry about that. Thank you, Chris. Thank you for chairing this meeting, and thank you for inviting me to this meeting. And also thank you to Paolo. Thank you to all the people who are listening and viewing this event today. It is about Shahriar Kabir, and it is a human rights concern, and we will continue to push for this concern. for the situation of Shahriar Kabir, for him to be released, for him to be treated well, properly, as a human being should, as any person should, but especially someone like Shahriar Kabir, who has actually spent almost all of his life trying to defend the human rights of others. Now it is for us to defend his human rights. So good evening to everybody. I am Abbas Faith, formerly Amnesty International senior researcher on South Asia, with Bangladesh being a prominent country of my brief. Currently, as Chris mentioned, I'm a lecturer at Essex Law School. I have deep-rooted contact with the civil society in the country, including human rights organizations, the legal community, the media and other professional bodies and communities. I have met Bangladesh government authorities, including ministers, prime ministers, and presidents during my frequent visits to the country. I have welcomed any of their measures that have been in line with respect for human rights, and I have objected, criticized, or even condemned when they have committed human rights violations. Governments have come and gone or have changed, but my approach has not changed, as I'm sure nobody in this meeting is here whose approach to human rights has changed. So we have a very good panel here to actually talk about human rights, because all of us, in exactly the same way, when we have faced with a human rights violation, we have objected to that. When we have actually seen that some good steps have been taken by an authority, we have welcomed that. So this is the position that we are in. Ladies and gentlemen, like many people in Bangladesh, I was and I still am optimistic about the political changes, and I have welcomed these changes. I have written about it to welcome these changes. But I'm also very concerned about some of the shortcomings. Sadly, there are some shortcomings and some serious shortcomings. The interim government needs to address them. They have already begun to address some of the issues that we've been addressing. And there are good news, but that is not enough. They need to go further, and I'm sure that they will be able to address these concerns that we are actually referring to tonight. My focus today is on the case of Mr. Shahriar Kabir. I have known Mr. Kabir for more than 20 years. I got to know about him when Amnesty International received information that he had been detained, and that was in November 2001. Sorry, that was in November 2001. A month later, Amnesty International declared him a prisoner of conscience. Amnesty International stated that he had been detained solely for writing articles, giving interviews, and taking video footage of the victims subjected to attacks and other human rights violations. Following a human rights campaign inside and outside Bangladesh, he was released, and that was in January 2002. His troubles were not over, and he was detained again for expressing his views, but again he was released after a campaign. And this, nonetheless, he was in prison for several weeks. His detentions were in clear breach of his right to freedom of expression. Since then, Mr. Kabir has been a vocal person about his opinions and views on the situation of human rights in Bangladesh. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm fully conversant with international human rights law and with the Constitution of Bangladesh. Both of these consider the right to freedom of expression to be a fundamental right. Both forbid the arrest of anyone on account of expressing the right to freedom of expression. Today, these legal safeguards have been somewhat bypassed in some areas. In the case of Mr. Shahriar Kabir, they have been definitely bypassed and they need to be corrected. Mr. Kabir has been arrested again on fabricated charges. But the real reason for his arrest is likely to be the critical views which he had expressed and frequently in his writings in relation to some of the political parties in opposition to the ousted government. And these parties include also Jamaat-e-Islami. Ladies and gentlemen, as a practitioner of human rights law, I do not take sides with the views that people express, but I defend their right to express their views. Defending someone's right to express their views is independent of agreeing or disagreeing with the political or other views that they express. Ladies and gentlemen, there are disturbing reports that Mr. Kabir has been subjected to mob violence during his court appearance. Mob attack is against the law, and the perpetrators must be brought to justice. I have seen no indication in the media that such incidents are being investigated by the police or anyone is being prosecuted for engaging in mob violence. Only today there are some news, and we welcome those news, that a number of people have been arrested in connection with attacks against some of the minorities. So that is a good news. We hope, and I sincerely hope, that we will hear very soon that Shahriar Kabir has been also released, because his detention is against the international human rights law and also against the Constitution of Bangladesh. Mr. Kabir has been detained on fabricated charges, as I said, which is in fact also against the law. This is clear example of double standard, discrimination and bias against Mr. Kabir. The interim government has a responsibility to ensure the removal of any discriminatory practices throughout the criminal justice system against Shahriar Kabir or against any other detainees. Another evidence that point to the action of the interim government towards abuse of authority by the police is the way charges are allowed to be brought against a detainee in succession. This is when the court releases a detainee on bail, but the police refrains from releasing them and shows them arrested in another case. This is an old tactic to bypass expected practice and keep a person detained against the law. This is an abuse of the legal process. In Mr. Kabir's case, this has become a means of keeping Mr. Kabir in detention without him receiving a fair trial. It could be remedied, and the interim government can actually start the process of remedying this, not only in the case of Mr. Shahriar Kabir, but in the case of many others, by grouping all of the charges in one place and seeking that the judge hears those charges in one day. So they don't get into the situation that Mr. Shahriar Kabir has got in. Mr. Kabir was charged for, as I said, it was fabricated charges. They were all fabricated charges, and he was charged with 6 different kind of counts of charges, which did not stand any evidence before the court of law, but nonetheless, the judge did not release him. And the judge heard each of those cases in one day. So Mr. Kabir was arrested in Dhaka, and then he was taken to Ghazipur jail, which is some 2 hours from Dhaka. So and Mr. Kabir is an ill person. He cannot actually stand on his legs. So he has to use a wheelchair and crutches to be able to actually move. And that is very, very painful. Traveling for him in a car is very painful. So for those charges, he had to be brought to Dhaka 6 times before the judge, the magistrate, and then 3 times before the sessions court judge. So that is really 9 times he has had to endure the travel from Ghazipur jail to Dhaka, just because there is no organization of these kind of activities. There is no management to ensure that the detainees, the people who have been charged with any kind of offense, they receive a fair trial. So that is not a fair trial to really not hear all those cases in one day or in at least 2 days. It is wrong to do that. And I think that is something that the interim government has got to look at. So Mr. Kabir, the first 2 appearances before the judge, before the magistrate, he actually expressly stated, and it was absolutely visible to everybody around him, that he could not stand on his legs. Nonetheless, the judge actually made him to stand for the whole duration of his appearance before the magistrate to stand on his legs. So that is really not, it shouldn't be allowed. It shouldn't be allowed in a fair and impartial judicial process. This is a way of bypassing the best practice, the best international practice on the kind of trial of persons accused of anything. So that is also a problem. The third problem that I have come to see is that Mr. Shahriar Kabir is very ill. He is really, he has difficulty. He has a combination of illnesses that need urgent attention. I am going to actually give credit to the interim government for enabling him to be visited at a hospital by some doctors, but that is not enough. Mr. Kabir needs a place where he can actually lie down properly, where he can have the facilities that he needs. And really, I recall last time when Mr. Kabir was arrested in 2001 and 2002, and he received what we know as division in Bangladesh. Division means that, you give the prisoner, the person who is detained, a decent place to lie on, a decent place to be, somewhere where he can have a degree of privacy. And this time, and in order to get that, the magistrate has got to order that, or the sessions court has got to order that, the judge of the sessions court. And interestingly, in this particular case, the judge of the court has ordered division for Mr. Shahriar Kabir. But that division has got to be approved by the deputy commissioner. We just don't understand. I personally do not understand why the deputy commissioner has sat on that order and is not actually approving that. There is no reason why the deputy commissioner should actually sit on the order that the judge has issued. What is going on? And where is the interim government to actually come and find out why the deputy commissioner is not carrying out his own activities properly? So this is a very serious issue. And here I have gone on for quite a bit, so I will end my talk by a number of recommendations to the interim government. And I do hope, really, I appeal to the interim government to please look into the situation of Mr. Shahriar Kabir and ensure that justice is done. So justice will be done in his case if these steps are taken immediately, immediately, and immediately. Ensure that he receives urgent medical attention. As I say, I'm really pleased and I welcome that he has been able to actually meet some medical practitioners, but that is not enough. He's got to be seen again and he's got to receive the medical attention that he deserves and he needs. Bring to justice the mob who attacked Shahriar Kabir during his court appearance. That is my second appeal to the interim government. My third appeal is drop fabricated charges against Mr. Shahriar Kabir and facilitate his release. And my fourth and last recommendation and appeal to the interim government is to encourage the prosecutors to group charges so they could be heard together by the magistrate or the sessions court in one go. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Abbas, for that excellent summary on Shahriar Kabir's sort of the challenges that he faces. We all love Bangladesh. We've seen the chat. We've studied Bangladesh for many years, all of us. We've seen comings and goings. I was cautiously optimistic about what would unfold with the new interim government, and I think the Shahriar Kabir's case has been quite a hard pill to swallow. I think my expectations of Muhammad Yunus and there being a new dawn in Bangladeshi politics, that these kinds of spurious legal cases would be a thing of the past. So I think as the new administration finds its feet, I would like to think that this kind of case is something that Muhammad Yunus and his attorney general and all the rest of the prosecutors would think that no, these kinds of cases belong to our past in Bangladesh. So I think, and it is worrying seeing the attacks on courts and people threatening lawyers, saying that they can't have representation. It is extremely worrying. So thank you for that summation of Shahriar Kabir's condition. Next, I would like to invite Paolo Casacca, who's been a massive friend of Shahriar Kabir, and he understands the challenges that Shahriar has faced in Bangladesh over the years. So, Paolo, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you very much, Chris. And let me first congratulate the European Bangladesh Forum for celebrating the 10th of December, the International Day of Human Rights, celebrating one of its biggest expressions. I am 67 years now. Actually, when I started my activity, my sort of political but active social activity was exactly creating a group of Amnesty International in the Azores over 40 years ago. And at the time we were electing, we were proposed a prisoner of conscience to adopt, and we would do our utmost for his liberation. I think that the case of Shahriar Kabir is really not only is not only bigger than Bangladesh, because I learned immensely with him, for instance, on Afghanistan, just to give you an example. But it goes even further than South Asia. I think Shahriar Kabir is a top intellectual that understood the logic of the need of secularism and the dangers put by religious fanaticism this to the secular way of living that is the only form of having respect among people that obviously have different beliefs, different nationalities, different ethnicities. And therefore, I am very pleased that to listen from his lawyer, Mr. Habas Faiz. Thank you very much. I mean, as a friend, I have to say thank you for everything you have been doing. I really hope you will succeed as soon as possible. I have been thinking about Shahriar Kabir nearly every day because we know that he is not a young man any longer, and his survival is at stake by everything that he is submitted to. And that's my second word. Yes, thank you very much, and please continue. And now, what I would like to say in third place is that all of us, we have to press all the authorities where we have some clout. Here in Brussels, where I am, in the United Kingdom, everywhere. We have to press the authorities to for them to make an international movement for the immediate liberation of Shahriar Kabir. Um, he is really someone that is the symbol of everything we have to stand for. I think that this movement should be reinforced, and I hope that sooner rather than later we will have the opportunity of seeing Shahriar Kabir at least here by video and celebrating his freedom. Thank you very much for the invitation, and thanks the lawyer, and congratulations for the initiative.
Hi, thank you, Paolo, for that. I think you're right. I think a lot of us who obviously are more political, and Abbas has always been a sort of objective champion of human rights in Bangladesh. So obviously, he probably wouldn't want to weigh in on this. But I think you're right. For me, Shahriar Kabir, he kept Bangladesh's history alive. Um, we all know that over the years there's been quite revisionism. People wanted to suppress what had happened in 1971. A lot of people wanted actual justice. So we've seen in the last sort of 10 years, there's been a fight between what they call the Hefazat versus the Shabag guys, the people who wanted justice for 1971. So how that unfolds in Bangladesh is going to be a political challenge, I think, going forward. But I think on the sort of the procedural aspects, I hope for more. I hope for more from Mohammed Yunus, and I think this could be a test case. But it's not just Sharia who's under real problems. There are others too, and people who are being targeted with sort of lawfare, spurious cases, frivolous cases where people are abusing the law. And I'd like to see if Mohammed Yunus is encouraging reform, that we see these kinds of cases, people getting actual charged for abusing police time. I would like to see that. I mean, obviously, there's the free expression, but when people are using that to go after political opponents, I would like to see that be an end in Bangladesh. Um, so yeah, so I think it's very difficult for us here. Hopefully we can get the groups that used to be championing, like the likes of Shahriar Kabir, Amnesty International. He was a prisoner of conscience, as Abbas said. Why isn't Amnesty International? Why isn't Human Rights Watch? Why isn't the EU getting involved in this case? Because for me, it is a canary in the coal mine. Shahriar Kabir is an old man, a very sick old man, and he's effectively facing revenge and retribution. That's ultimately the cause of all of this. Somebody in Bangladesh wants him silenced, and why the new administration is allowing this to go ahead is a question that we have to answer. If there's going to be reform, I would like them to make Shahriar Kabir's plight a priority moving forward. So, Abbas, I think my question to you is: do you think that Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch are taking note of this case and other cases in Bangladesh?
I am really surprised that there hasn't been a loud voice about the release of Mr. Shahriar Kabir. It is really amazing to me. And I think you're absolutely right, Chris. We need to also bang at the doors of the international human rights organizations, which includes Amnesty International, includes Human Rights Watch, because there seems to be a sense of really kind of misdirection at the moment. Uh, we all welcome the changes, so there is no problem about that. And they welcome the changes too. But we also look at the shortcomings, and that is really what the human rights organization should be doing at the moment. And also, I mean, it is great that we've got Paolo with us here. And thank you, Paolo, for being here. Thank you, because I know, you have a very excellent track record of defending human rights at every corner, and that is really great. I think it is a morale booster for all of us that you are here. Thank you for being here. But Chris, I just wanted to also say something about the current situation in Bangladesh. I've met some of the kind of quite a lot of people since the changes have taken place, and I've met the leaders of some of the political parties, and they are all saying that they are going to defend the human rights of people, and really this is a test case for them. How are we going to be able to rely on the words of the Bangladesh Nationalist Party, the Jamaat-e-Islami, or any other political party, that they will be champions of human rights if this particular case, which is really a denial of human rights to a person who has been simply expressing his views? He hasn't been involved in any act of violence. Therefore, he has just been expressing his view. And for that, this is really a test case for these two parties to show that they are actually campaigning for the release of Shahriar Kabir. So they should come out with a statement. And I think, it would be really good if they do that. So at least for us who are so positive about the changes in Bangladesh, we would be reassured that political parties also have noticed that they are to be showing that they are championing human rights. So, and the best case to demonstrate that is to facilitate in their way the release of Mr. Shahriar Kabir.
Yes, Abbas, I think you're completely right. I think this is a test case because, I mean, we're all veterans of Bangladeshi politics. We've seen how sort of opposition parties say that they want to come to power and end the culture of impunity. Yet we see nothing happens once they take power. So I hope Bangladesh, this can be a breaking of the cycle there. And I think this case could be something, you're right to say that this test case, if all groups say, listen, we want to make this the past. If we want to make a new dawn in Bangladesh, we want a new future where parliamentary democracy is king, where the oppositions are responsible, and that kind of thing. These kinds of cases need to be a thing of the past. And I think we do need to be pushing people, pushing human rights organizations on this issue. So Paolo, I'd like to ask you a question. What could your organization, the South Asia Democratic Forum, how could you help? How could you push things in Brussels? How could you help Shahriar Kabir's plight?
Well, we did, as you know, I suppose you have been part of it. I had a public declaration that is gathering tens of personalities across the world on the liberation of Shahriar Kabir. I think that the time now is to to ask for the European Parliament to take notice of what is happening, to address the Human Rights Subcommittee of the European Parliament, to address the European Commission and the Council on this issue immediately. I think that if I'm not aware of everything that was being described at length by his lawyer, by Mr. Abbas Faiz, I think it's essential. If this can be concentrated, something like a page, and to ask every important personality in Brussels to address the issue to make it fundamental, peace in whatever will be the relations between the European Union and Bangladesh. I think this can be done, and this, I think, can be very fruitful.
Excellent, thank you. So, gentlemen, obviously Tanya couldn't be with us to give her statement. She's had technical problems. So, I think in summing up, I would like just a brief sort of summation from each of you guys on what you think the next steps will be, and obviously appeal again to the administration of Mohammed Yunus, because this is a test case. So, I think Abbas, would you like to go first?
Yes, I think I would like to see that, that demonstration from the demonstration of the fact that human rights are going to be respected, human rights are going to be actually implemented and promoted in Bangladesh. And in many ways they are actually. And that is really, credit to the current interim government. But it is not enough. And it is very important. And when we, as human rights defenders, international human rights defenders, people with really a background, a very strong background in defense of human rights, we see that someone like Shahriar Kabir is in detention, then we begin to wonder what the direction of the country is going to be. This is not in the interest of anybody. It is not in the interest of political activity in the country. It is not in the interest of civil society functioning in the country. If, like the past, everyone is going to be looking over their shoulder as to who is going to be watching them, it's not a good legacy to actually establish in the country. In fact, everyone, and when I say everyone, it includes the leaders of the political parties. It includes the leaders of the Bangladesh Nationalist Party. It includes the leaders of the Jamaat-e-Islami and other political parties that are functioning in Bangladesh at the moment. I'm not talking about the Awami League. I'm talking about all the other political parties that are functioning. They have to really see this is a test case, as you just mentioned, Chris, and very well you put it, that this is really a test case. For me also, it is a test case as to how we can maintain our hope that the country is not going to go down the same route as it had in the past. In the past, not just the previous government, and I'm not bothered to say that, but also governments before that. So if these political parties are going to actually, as they are saying to us, that they are going to kind of direct the political structure of the society, the country, into the path of human rights, then this is the test case. This is how you can show that even if you don't agree with the views of somebody, nonetheless, you are able, as the leadership of a political party, you are able to show that regardless of what they say, regardless of whether or not you agree or disagree with their views, because they are detained against the law, that you facilitate their release. So Shahriar Kabir is a very important test case, as Chris mentioned it, as Paulo mentioned it. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Abbas. Yeah, I think you're right, because I think a lot of people are anxious about the direction of Bangladesh. There's many who feel this sort of period it will be a challenge as maybe conservative, radical, or whatever, or Islamist groups want to put their sort of stamp on a constitution or whatever. So there is an anxiety about which direction and pathway Bangladesh is heading, and I think for me, I thought this would be a new dawn, and I thought that Muhammad Yunus is such a global personality that he would bring in people into place, and that there wouldn't be any of these kinds of problems. So, but I think there has been a lot of good noise, and there is a lot of good movement. But there is these problems, and we can't as sort of lovers of Bangladesh and people who want reform to take place in Bangladesh, we can't stand back and ignore these things from happening. And I think a lot of people are getting sort of caught into the celebrity of Muhammad Yunus, and I think that's why it is a shame that Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch haven't made a bigger thing of the sort of the attacks on lawyers and in courts, and watching all these sort of, it's almost like pitched battles taking place in Bangladesh's courts, and especially on sort of human rights and minority cases. And I would love to see global human rights organizations taking a bit of a like a more of a principled stand on this, because I think that's the bread and butter of what these organizations do. Why they're not doing that, is it the cult of, or the celebrity of Muhammad Yunus? They don't want to be seen to be making his the administration or belittling the administration. I don't know, but I think going forward, I would like to see everybody singing from the same hymn sheet. And I think Muhammad Yunus has made some great speeches. However, when it hasn't been sort of actioned on the ground, and I would like to see a lot more, especially to do with the protection of minorities. I would like to see a little bit more movement. Yes, he's tried to pull everybody together. There's being calls for unity, which is great, but we'd like to see a few more concrete steps. So, Paolo, for your summation, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chris. I fully agree with what you just said, and I hope that there will be, a bit of sense from the Bangladesh authorities, and to listen to the plight of all those who believe in human rights, and to free Shahriar Kabir as soon as possible. I would like to do whatever is in my capacity to press the European institutions for acting on behalf of Shahriar Kabir. And I hope, in cooperation with you, I think that we could, make a synthesis of the present situation, and ask to see some important people, and ask them to take measures. And I think this should be done immediately. And we should not stop till we see the liberation of Shahriar Kabir.
Thank you for that, Paolo. So I think in summation, thank you everybody for tuning in. Unfortunately, Tanya couldn't join us because of problems with her IT. But I think what we want here is for the interim government, they have to release Sharia Kabir. Abbas and Paolo have mentioned that these cases are being done on purpose. It's almost being done to silence human rights voices. And I'd like to see the Attorney General really putting his stamp. If he wants to reform the judicial system in Bangladesh, this is a case where he could really get his teeth into. And I would also like to see international human rights organizations take a more proactive and principled stance on this. Shahriar Kabir is a children's author, and he's fought for human rights and the protection of minorities for decades. This is the kind of guy that we should be putting forward and celebrating as a human rights defender. The fact that nobody wants to really talk about him is a damning indictment of where human rights are going. So I think we all call for the release of Shahriar Kabir, and we are all hopeful. None of us here think that Bangladesh is going to go the way of Afghanistan or anywhere else. And there are people who can do a real good job in Bangladesh, and we are all hopeful. But I think me and Paolo are probably the same. We're cautiously optimistic. There have been signs of things could go the other way. So we want to see real leadership, and I think the Shahriar Kabir case could be something where Bangladesh could really make a difference and show its intent, show its intent that they want to look at the past and to have conflict mediation between basically what have been warring parties. Let's not beat around the bush here. There've been parties that have been at war in Bangladesh, and we want to see reconciliation. We want to see peace. We want to see a Bangladesh that people aren't living in fear in the future. So this case, I think, is got to be priority. So thank you everyone for joining tonight. Thank you to our guests, and hopefully we can have more discussions like this going forward.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.